The ever-growing gaming backlog. We all have them, but why is it that we seem to never make any forward progress on completing said backlog? Let's talk about it. I feel like in order to get to the root of the problem and how we can fix it, we need to know how it even started. I think childhood is the best place to start. When we were children, most of us were lucky to have 5 or 6 games at our fingertips, let alone a seemingly infinite pool of games we want to play, but likely never will. Do you remember going to the video game section of Walmart and playing the various kiosks while your parents shopped for groceries? Having to nearly break our necks just to play the Ratchet & Clank Up Your Arsenal demo. These moments were, for many of us, the only opportunity we had to play any new video games. We would soon be collected by our parents to go check out, and when we got home, we'd turn on our PS2 and play Bark at the Moon on Guitar Hero for the 20th time. This limitation would force us to truly get the most out of our games. We only had a small selection of games to choose from, so we'd play these same games over and over again until Christmas or our birthday would come around and we'd maybe get a new game to play. Sadly, many of our parents fell into the trap of buying licensed games, which were majorly hit and miss, but often miss. Sometimes we'd get an absolute banger, like the Lord of the Rings The Return of the King movie tie-in game, but other times we'd end up with a Superman 64. If we lucked out and got a Return of the King, we'd add it to the top of our pile, play it to death, and when we've had our fill, we'd sift through our small stack of games and then play Bark at the Moon on Guitar Hero for the 23rd time. But if we got a Superman 64, we'd play it until we couldn't bear it any longer, put it at the bottom of our pile, and go play Bark at the Moon on Guitar Hero for the 26th time. This song and dance would continue until we'd get our first job and finally have some expendable income to throw at video games. We finally have a little money, and we have our sights set on games. Lots of games. Now we have to learn how to balance what we really want and what we can afford. Do I buy the new Assassin's Creed, or do I take a chance and buy something like Warhammer 40k Space Marine? Oftentimes, we'd err on the side of caution and buy what we knew, and then take a mental note of the game we turned down, and maybe, just maybe, get it on sale or buy a pre-owned copy from GameStop a year down the road. You're starting to see where this is going, right? This, for me, is exactly the point as to where my backlog started, and I imagine your experience isn't too different from mine. This problem only worsened when the digital store and Steam became a staple. GameStop BOGOs and Steam sales gave us the opportunity to stock up on a bunch of games for cheap. So now, here we are. The tables have turned. Compensating for the lack of games we had as a kid, it used to be that we had too much time and only a few games to play, and now we have little time and far too many games to play. With every year that passes, the backlog just continues to grow, and if you are a multi-platform player, the problem becomes even worse because you are now taking into account platform exclusives that you would otherwise be able to simply write off as, nope, can't play that. So now that we understand how many of us got here in the first place, how do we tackle this thing? I think a plan of attack is essential to our success. So where do we start? I'm immediately reminded of the Total Money Makeover author Dave Ramsey. Weird, I know, but stay with me. He has a tried and true strategy on how to get out of debt. It's called the snowball method. You start with analyzing all of your streams of debt, then you take the smallest source of debt and you pay that one off first. After you've done that, you find the next smallest source of debt and you focus on paying that one off. Eventually, one by one, you'll have knocked out all of your credit card debt, all of your loans, except for the largest source, which you can now give your undivided attention to. You see where I'm going with this, right? We first need to analyze our entire backlog and determine what games we consider our gaming debt, excluding games that don't have a beginning and an end, like MMOs, Battle Royales, MOBAs, etc. For the purposes of this video, we're going to just say we've analyzed our backlog and we have 10 games we want to beat. I would take each title and organize them from the shortest how long to beat time to the longest how long to beat time. Obviously, if we are using the snowball method, we have to start with the shortest game. Focusing on beating the shortest game first will give us a very quick path to starting our backlog gaming makeover. End credits. We are looking for a clear sign that we've beaten the game. That is the source of dopamine that will keep us motivated. At first, you'll be knocking out games left and right until we've reached Baldur's Gate. Okay, not literally. This is just an example of the type of game that may be on your mountaintop. A severe time commitment that, although may be very worth it, is nothing short of daunting. But what if I just don't feel like playing? Fill in the blank, you ask. Well, that's fine too. This isn't a job. This is simply a blueprint. Amendments to the rules are acceptable. I, for one, am a mood gamer. If I'm not feeling the game I'm supposed to play, I simply don't play it. However, this is a formula for failure. Allowing yourself to play strictly based on mood can put you in a bigger backlog hole, and that only hurts your goal in the end. If you truly do want to make some headway on your backlog, there will need to be some sacrifices made, and that may mean powering through a session or two in the name of progress. That being said, I think we can find a happy medium here. Let's just say the average gamer plays about 2 hours per night and averages 5 nights a week. Doing the math, 5 days times 2 hours per day, carry the 9, 10 hours. I think with 10 hours of progress per week, we can allot for some non-backlog gaming, right? The amount of time you dedicate to the backlog is entirely up to you, but obviously the less time dedicated to the cause lengthens the overall time it will take to accomplish your goal. Let's just say you dedicate 7 of your 10 weekly hours strictly to making progress on your backlog. That will give you 364 hours a year spent clearing your backlog. If you only dedicate 5, that gives you 260 hours, so on and so forth. Assuming the average length of a game is about 15 hours, at 364 hours a year, you would have been able to beat roughly 24.2 games, and at 260 hours, 17.3. I think it goes without saying that results may vary depending on how much time you have to play each week. At first, you may see yourself spending all 10 of your hours on working towards completing your backlog, but once you've finally reached the mountaintop, you may see the motivation start to dwindle. This is when it's important to reevaluate the aforementioned time split. If allocating all 10 of your gaming hours a week into Baldur's Gate 3 alone is causing you to lose motivation, then perhaps it's time to shift focus a little bit. Any progress is good progress. Even if you only spend 2 of your 10 hours per week playing Baldur's Gate 3, you'll still be able to beat the game in about 34 weeks. Not a huge time commitment weekly, but it's still working towards your goal while allowing yourself to enjoy other games that may be more of what your mood calls for. Balance. Balance is the key to success. So now what? We have our strategy, and it's time to get gaming. But before you do, I think there are 2 more things of importance to remember. Gaming is a hobby, and should be fun. With my plan, progress for the sake of progress is strictly prohibited. If you truly aren't getting any enjoyment out of your experience with the game, you can do 2 things. Move it to the bottom of your backlog, and circle back to it. Maybe you just aren't feeling it right now, but who knows, in 6 months perhaps it will change your life. The other thing you can do is rather obvious. Simply remove it from your backlog. There is no shame in DNFing a game. There are far too many games to play in one person's lifetime, and you shouldn't commit time to a game that you aren't enjoying. I know I've just spent the last however long minutes talking about how to complete our backlog, but there is one more crucial point I have omitted thus far. None of this actually matters. Gaming is a hobby and should be fun. Yes, for some people gaming may actually be their job, but for most of us it isn't. So don't allow yourself to stress over this. It's not important. If you never complete your backlog, that's okay. With this strategy, you may make a hefty dent in it, but you'll likely never complete it. New games come out every single day, and your backlog will never not be growing. Every year I add at least 3 must-play games to my backlog, and I will probably never reach its end, and that's okay. Play what you want to play. If that means you spend the next 2 months trying to get every achievement in the original Peggle, then do it.
You're right.
If you do manage to catch up on your backlog, then well done. But what have you really accomplished other than a minor personal goal? There are far too many more important things in life to stress about than your gaming backlog. I only offer this information because having a strategy for something like a backlog can make working through it a bit more fun. I know I love playing games with the intent of unlocking achievements. Outlining my plan of attack in a game based around unlocking achievements gives me something other than just playing the game to work towards. Without an end goal and a roadmap on how to get there, it makes the process just that much harder. With all that said, if this isn't for you, and you just want to continue to play the same 2-3 games for the rest of your life, then do that. Enjoy the hobby that is gaming. Your legacy will not be defined by the games you choose to play during your life, except Superman 64. Don't be the person known for loving Superman 64.